Alright folks, so Polar has finally released all the details on their new screenless health and activity tracker, which now has a name, and they're calling it the new Polar Loop. Pretty good name. So this is definitely an exciting time for screenless wearables that can track all your health stats and your activities throughout the day without the distractions of a screen like most wearables nowadays. And they've certainly been popularized by Whoop, of course, but there's also a lot of other options out there, like let's say Amazfit with their Helio Band, as well as some other interesting startups. But now we have the new option from Polar, and I think that maybe the most exciting thing about the fact that Polar's coming out with this sort of thing is that Polar has a long history with heart rate tracking, but also a solid foundation when it comes to health and training feedback. So this is just kind of like a natural evolution for them to come out with something like this with their new Polar Loop. Now, probably one of the biggest complaints that many of us have had with Whoop is the subscription cost. And the cost for the Whoop subscription is not cheap by any means. And the great news about the new Polar Loop is that there is no subscription required to use it. And maybe even some better news is that it costs $180 in the US. Actually, that was the original pricing that they gave me, and you'll notice I'm in a different shirt right now because they decided to update the US pricing a few hours before launch to $199.99. An increase for sure, and I think we all know why, but it's still a pretty good price. And then one more thing is that they've also updated the US pricing for additional wristbands to $29.99 versus the original $19.99 that I was given. Anyhow, just a little update, and back to the rest of the video. That's a pretty great price for something that we can just keep on using without having to pay year after year. And then for availability, so pre-orders start today, September 3rd, which is the day that this video is coming out, and then they'll start shipping around September 10th. And as you may have noticed, they actually haven't started out shipping review units quite yet to reviewers, even at the time of this filming. So there's no actual reviews of this quite yet, so just something to be aware of before actually hitting that buy button. But the new Polar Loop is all based around their Polar 360 band that they introduced a while back, but the 360 band wasn't available to the general public. It was meant for other businesses to purchase it as more of like a corporate wellness solution kind of thing. And it was honestly sort of a strange decision for Polar to go down the B2B route versus just having something that anyone can buy. But today is that day where they now have the Loop that any of us can buy. And at the core, this new Loop is pretty much exactly the same as their 360 band in terms of the heart rate sensor as well as the underlying technology, but there are some key differences here with the Loop. But just like the 360, the Loop is going to be a light, comfortable, and minimalistic like tracker band that's going to come in right around 28 grams, but they brought out some new bands which look to be super nice, where they have stainless steel hardware including the buckle in 3 different colors, so a sand color, a black version, as well as a brown copper color. But at least from these photos, these look super nice, and the band itself also looks to be made out of a really nice material. And based on the fact that the material that they use for their optical heart rate sensors like their Polar Verity Sense are really nice, I'm guessing that these should be pretty good as well. But being that this is just a small, sleek band, this should be just like a Whoop or Amazfit Helio Band, where it should be great for all day wear as well as for sleep. Just kind of like non-intrusive and out of the way without a screen. Now for what they're introducing today though, see, these are wristbands and they haven't announced any plans for an armband option, at least at this time. However, if you do want additional colors of these wristbands, these are just going to be $20, which is a stark difference between these and Whoop's aftermarket bands, which cost like upwards of $50 or more sometimes. Now that $20 price is what they're advertising for these wristbands, but being that they haven't yet released information on if and when they're coming out with an armband, those could be a different price, but it is nice to see that they're charging a reasonable amount for these additional wristbands at least. But in terms of the technology inside as well as the health and training feedback, so that's exactly the same as their Polar 360, where this uses the same heart rate sensor, which is their Precision Prime optical heart rate sensor, but there's also some other sensors inside, like let's say an accelerometer, which allows them to track steps as well as detect workouts and activities. This is, however, a different sensor and underlying technology than their Elixir technology that they have in their more recent watches. But I wouldn't necessarily be overly concerned about that being a different technology, as I've actually gotten a really decent result out of their Polar Verity Sense heart rate monitor, which I actually use as a reference device in a lot of my tests. But in terms of the health feedback that it's going to provide, so it can track your heart rate 24 hours a day, it can track your steps, calories burned, as well as track workouts and activities. Now, when it comes to tracking workouts and activities, so there's going to be 3 different ways that you can actually do this. So you can manually track your activities by manually starting an activity in the Polar Flow app. So this is where you'll not only track your heart rate and calories burned, but you can also track your route for an outdoor activity if you'd like. Additionally though, let's say you don't want to carry your phone with you during your activity, so you can actually still manually start your activity in the Polar Flow app, then you can just leave your phone behind if you'd rather not bring it with you. The only caveat here is that you won't be able to track distance and your route if you're doing an outdoor activity, but you will still be tracking steps along with the rest of your health data. But the last way is that if you prefer not to have to manually start and stop activities at all and just go about your day without interacting with the app, you're apparently apparently supposed to be able to do that too, and it's designed to automatically detect all your activities in the background, and then at the end of the day, you can go back to the Polar Flow app and see what it detected and classify those activities as specific workouts. And you'll also be able to actually store up to 4 weeks of data on the device itself, so you don't necessarily need to constantly connect it with the app to offload data on a daily basis. So there's that flexibility there as well. And then on the sleep and recovery side of things, so it can track all the same sleep stats as Polar's other devices. So it can track your sleep stages, and it can also track your recovery from sleep, which is what they call their nightly recharge feature, which utilizes data like your heart rate variability. But in addition to that, it also has your Sleep Wise feature, which can attempt to predict your level of alertness throughout the day. And it's also supposed to have their Sleep Gate feature, which can suggest an optimal sleep time based on your sleep history and activity level for that day. Now, another benefit to this Polar Loop is that you can use this as a standalone device if you'd like to track everything that I just mentioned. But if you like to wear a watch, so you can also use this in conjunction with a Polar Watch, where it will basically seamlessly switch back and forth, where you could say use your watch all throughout the day as well as use it to track workouts, but then switch to the Polar Loop to wear during sleep, and all your data just kind of merge together in the Polar Flow app. And another thing they're actually announcing are some upcoming changes to the Polar Flow app itself, and this is all based on feedback from both myself as well as all of you out there, where they've heard from all of us that it's been feeling a little bit dated, so they're announcing some plans to refresh the overall look and feel to be a bit more with the times. Now, one thing that actually is slightly different from a hardware perspective from the 360 band is that the Polar Loop is supposed to get about 1 to 2 days more battery life, so up to 8 days of battery life with the Polar Loop. So all that stuff that I just talked about comes with the one-time price of the Polar Loop, but for those of you curious, so they do already have a completely optional subscription service for any of Polar's devices that you can use. So this is their fitness program, which is more of a coaching service that can give you personalized guidance on achieving specific goals, but the fitness program isn't actually something that's going to be supported at least at the time of launch of the Loop. But this is, again, a purely optional add-on service if you want that additional level of coaching, at least with their other devices. And another thing that you may be curious about is if you can use the Polar Loop as an external heart rate strap, like let's say their Polar Verity Sense heart rate monitor, and at least at launch, this isn't going to be available. And I think this kind of surrounds the fact that the Loop has one Bluetooth connection, meaning that it would need to kind of juggle that one connection between the connection with the Polar Flow app on your phone versus another device. So they haven't necessarily ruled that out, but it's not something that's going to be available at least at launch. So there's definitely some exciting stuff about this new Polar Loop, like the price, the fact that it doesn't require a subscription, as well as the looks, which I have to say I'm pretty stoked about. But in regards to if it actually works and how it compares to Whoop, well, make sure to subscribe to the channel for a full in-depth review that'll be coming out soon. But if you did find the information in this video to be useful, do me a favor and just hit that like button down below. It's a small thing that you can do that'll help this video and the channel out quite a bit, and I appreciate it. But in the meantime, have fun out there, and we will see you in the next video.